Hello, guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today, we're going to be playing another episode of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights. We take a look at some of the wonderful mods people are making and use them to talk about some of the wonderful biodiversity that we share our world with. So today, we've got quite an interesting assortment of animals, as we always do. But we've got we got not one, but two, but three fishes. We've got three extinct animals, and of course, you saw on the tin, we've got a really cool leopard seal mod, which, I love leopard seals. So, we're going to get quite stuck into that. But first up, we've got GreatCakesMods, who's dominating, not just releasing so many fishies, as we'd love to see. So, this one here, this is the magnificent frog face rabbitfish. Also just known as the magnificent rabbitfish, or Cygnus magnificus. So these guys are a species of rabbitfish. You're not really hanging out. Yeah, not probably the best place for you. I want to see you in the water. See water you want about. There you go. Look at you, little cutie patootie. These guys are a family of rabbitfish found in the eastern Indian Ocean. And they occasionally make their way into the aquarium trade, but they're not a super popular one. Is the other side better colour? No, this side's the better one. And it was first described in 1977 as Lo magnificus by American ichthyologist Warner E. Burris from the Andaman Sea and off Thailand, and then was put into the genus Cygnus, though some treat it as a subgenus, and seemed to be closely related to the fox-faced rabbitfish as well. Lives in a similar range as well. So the magnificent rabbitfish, as you can see, has got a very oval-shaped body. And a relatively long snout, this kind of gets the name rabbitfish from. It has 13 spines and 10 soft rays on its dorsal fin, with its anal fin having 7 spines and 9 soft rays, and a slightly forked caudal fin. As you can see, that's the caudal fins here. This species attains a maximum length of about 24 centimeters, or about 9.4 inches, but is really longer than 20 centimeters or 7.9 inches, so that would be like the Shaquille O'Neal magnificent fox-faced rabbitfish. The colours you can see are white, broken by a large black saddle-like blotch in here, and with fine spots on its margins. There's also a black facial stripe you see here, and the pectoral, anal, and caudal fins have bright yellow margins, with the soft ray parts of its dorsal fin having a little bit of red there. So it's a very interesting looking fish. So in terms of habitat, as I mentioned, it is endemic to the Andaman Sea, and is found around Myanmar, in Thailand and the Nicobar Islands. They were believed to occur there, and is found at depths typically from 2 to 30 meters, or between 7 foot to 98 feet deep. Found in typically sheltered reefs and corals. So very similar to its relatives, these magnificent fox-faced rabbitfish tends to feed on a diet of algae and small invertebrates. The adults are frequently encountered in pairs, while the secretive juveniles tend to occur solitary and use the corals to provide shelter. Magnificent rabbitfishes are thought to have a lifespan of about 10 to 12 years, and becoming sexually mature at about 2 years, and the pelagic larval stage of the species means that there's likely only to be a single population. The conservation and utilization of the species, they are considered least concern, as the reefs they're found on are far offshore and are quite safe from developments, and also live in protected areas. So this species itself is probably is doing quite well. And they are collected for the aquarium trade, but not too heavily in comparison. Yeah, very, very cool. Cool guy there. So next up, we've got another species by GreatCakesMods. This one is another cool one here. We've got here the flag rabbit rockfish, or the Spanish flag. That's another fun name for it. And belongs in the subfamily Sebastidae, part of the family Scorpionidae. So these guys were formerly described in 1880 by American ichthyologist David Starr Jordan and Charles Henry Gilbert, found in a reef, and it lives in California. Its specific name means red banded, so you can see where it gets its name. I like the names that are descriptive. They always tell you something about that animal. So let's see if we can have a look at you down here, actually, because you're actually swimming under the water. There we go. Swimming under the water with a bottle of water. Alright, there we go. So these guys are a relatively slender, rhomboidus-shaped fish with a depth that is roughly 1/3 the standard length with a thin pointed head. There are 13 spines and 12 to 15 soft rays with the dorsal fin, while the anal fin has 3 spines. The second spine being the most robust, elongated than the third, with 6 to 8 soft rays. The caudal fin is tunicate. The overall colour is white with 4 vermilion bands and 2 on the head. And you can see they've got these kind of 4 or 5 bands of orange on them. Sorry. The bands at the front of the dorsal fin reach to the operculum. The bands fade to white and background colour becomes less bright as the fish ages, so the older the fish, the less bright it is. And they tend to attain a maximum length of about 51 centimetres or about 20 inches and a maximum published weight of about 1.5 kilograms. So in terms of its distribution and habitat, it is found in the eastern Pacific Ocean from Cerrados Island in Baja California, north to Alaska, where it actually occurs as far west as the Akutama Islands. And they're a dismal fish and can be found in rocky reefs up to about 300 meters deep. In terms of their biology, they're typically encountered as solitary fish, but they may actually be found in mixed aggregations with other species such as canary rockfish, the rosy rockfish, starry rockfish, square rockfish, green spotted rockfish, and vermilion rockfish. And they are quite a predatory species, so they will feed on a diet that includes krill, octopus, as well as a variety of other marine invertebrates. They can live for as long as 38 years as well, which is quite interesting. And like other rockfish, they are oviviparous, which means the eggs are fertilized internally, and the embryos are fed from the mother before she exudes the live larvae. So that's another really cool thing about these guys. Let's have a look at you as you carry swimming in the water. There we go. In terms of fisheries, they are a minor importance to recreational and commercial fisheries of California, and are mostly caught by recreational fishermen using hook and line gear. They have been caught commercially off British Columbia with 445,000 kilograms or 99,000 pounds landing in 1952. So it's kind of mostly about these species. Very, very cool little bunch. And we've got our last fish, of course, our last fish by GreatCakes. We have got the giant sea bass. So let's have a look at this one. I do love me a big fishy, especially a big sea bass. Look at that boy. Very, very cool one. So the giant sea bass, or Stereolepis gigas, is a fish native to the North Pacific Ocean, often referred to as the giant sea bass, the black sea bass, or giant black sea bass. They are unrelated to true sea basses in the family Serenidae. So these guys are quite large. There are published reports of giant sea basses getting longer than 7 feet, or 2.1 meters long. A 2014 specimen found one that was 6'9" feet long, and in growth, as the sea bass slows with age, it's likely that prediction would be 2.06 meters in a definite age. So reports of giant bass weighing as much as 600 pounds or 270 kilograms cannot be verified, but a specimen weighing just under 197 kilograms or 435 pounds was found. And aside from its tremendous size, they're known to live quite long. They take about 11 to 12 years to reach maturity, and where they weigh at around 50 pounds or about 23 kilos. And there are some unverified reports that have claimed that these guys can live potentially for up to 90 to 100 years. So that's very interesting as well. In terms of their range, they live in the eastern northern Pacific, so they range from the Humboldt Bay in California to the Gulf of California, Mexico, mostly from Point Conception southward, and in the northwestern Pacific, and it occurs in Japan as well. They tend to stay near kelp forests, drop-offs in rocky bottoms, and sand or mudflats. Juvenile giant sea bass can be found in depths around 69 feet or 21 meters, while adults of the species can be found at depths between 66 feet or 20 meters. Juveniles of the species are also brightly colored, but they become more grayish-brown like these guys as they mature into adults. So, in terms of their diets within the kelp forest, they are considered apex predators. They're the tiger of the kelp, you could say. So they tend to rely on feeding on crustaceans as well as a wide variety of other fish. For populations off the coast of California, anchovies and croaker are a prominent food source, along with mackerel, sheephead, whitefish, sand bass, and several types of crab. And despite their great size and bulky appearance, they actually are very quick when they need to be, outstripping bonito. So one of the interesting things about the species is actually considered critically endangered, and I'll get to why that is. So recreational fishing of the giant sea bass began in the late 19th century and caught off the central and southern Californian coasts in the 20th century. The peak catch of the sea bass was in 1932. Once relatively common in southern California waters, the fish actually faced local extinction in the 1980s. They were seen as a popular game fish by both freediving and scuba spearfishermen. In the 1970s, there were species that was made illegal. Spearfishing these guys was made illegal by the California Department of Fish and Game. One notable incident precipitated an abrupt change in the law, with several free divers had taken seven fish from Santa Cruz, and they sold the catch illegally to a fish market, and they discovered the fish had been spared by observing the holes and slip tears inside the body. So they got in big trouble. By the late 1970s, biologists with the California Department of Fish and Game actually recognized that the local population of the giant sea bass were declining, and actions had to be taken, resulting in protection from commercial and sports fishing that went into effect in 1982, and in 1996 it was enlisted as critically endangered by the ACN. But as of 2004, it was suggested that the population size of giant sea bass may be increasing as it is under protection, however no hard data would support it. But in 2016, the first captive breeding of this species occurred in the aquarium of the Pacific, and the total breeding population in California in 2018 was estimated to be about 500 individuals, with about 40 to 50 returning to the Catalina Island every year to spawn. Giant sea bass remain understudied in the Mexican portions of their range, although efforts are underway to monitor the population size, genetic conductivity, and fishing pressures along the Pacific coast and the Baja Peninsula. More than half of the range of the giant sea bass is within Mexican waters. And in Mexico, these guys are called the Mero Gigante. And the peak catch of the giant sea bass, as I mentioned, was in 1932, where they caught over 800,000 pounds, or 360,000 kilos. Prior to 1974, commercial catches in sea bass in Mexican waters were over 200,000 pounds, or 91,000 kilos. But in 1981, they were initially allowed to catch up to 1,000 pounds for up to 50 kilos of sea bass per trip to Mexican waters, but no more than 3,000 pounds, 1,400 a year. In 1988, the regulations changed to only allow a single giant sea bass to be taken per trip if taken incidentally, and within those waters for over half a century, the average catch for the Mexican fishermen was about 55 tons, or 55,000 kilograms. So another really cool species. I know you guys love to see some fishies. I remember the old Leaf days when they made lots of fishies, but it's kind of a little comeback to that. But I really love seeing a lot of these fish. It gives me some cool opportunity to talk about some cool animals. And of course, GreatCakes, you've always done an amazing job. I'm really happy with how you've done with these guys. So next up, we've got Eliza Planet Zoo back again with a extinct mod again this time. So this is going to be quite interesting. This here is Epicyon, what's the species name? Haydeni. So this is the big one. So that's the big one. So, Epicyon, which means more than a dog, is a large extinct canid genus, belongs to the subfamily of the Borophagenes, or the bone-crushing dogs that were native to North America. These guys lived for about 7 million years, from the early Chaloronian age of the late Miocene to the late Hemophilian age of the early Pleistocene. So the species that makes this genus famous, and the one you probably know, is Epicyon haydeni, is the largest known canid of all time. That's its claim of fame. With the type species itself, this is also the type species, reaching about 2.4 meters, or about 7.9 feet in length, 90 centimeters tall at the shoulder, and reaching about 100 to 125 kilograms, or 220 pounds, or 236 pounds at the shoulder, with a largest known humerus believed to belong to an individual that was 170 kilos, or 370 pounds. So quite a big doggy, which you do love a big doggy. So this guy was first named by Joseph Liddy in 1858 in the subgenus of Canis, but it was also mentioned to be, a later study showed it was actually a member of Borophagine. So haydeni, the type species, existed for about from 10 to 5 million years ago, and has been synonymized with a lot of different animals. Usually back in the day of America, the Bone Wars, a lot of things were split and now they've been lumped again. Some other species have been around, but they were nowhere near as big. Salvinus was about 60-70 kilos, about the size of the wolf. But what made Edenai quite interesting is that it had a massive head and powerful jaws, well adapted for bone crushing. Very much like almost like a hyena. It's a great example of convergent evolution with hyenas, giving it a lion-shaped skull rather than a dog-shaped skull or a wolf-shaped skull, and allowed them to be quite good scavengers. So as I mentioned, Haydenai was quite large, getting very, very big, 170 kilos in one individual. That's cute. But yeah, very, very interesting guy, this one. So the Borophagines were an extinct group of called bone-crushing dogs. They were known for having quite large, strong jaws, and they were endemic to North America. At least I'm pretty sure. So predatory behavior. The molars of Ehadenine were grindstone-like, and that means they could eat potentially a diet of both meat and plants and insects. So the proportional size of a animal's molars is a great measure of their diet, and based on fossilized feces and robust kind of teeth and jaws, it was actually suggested they had a digestive tract or similar niche to a modern-day hyena. So that's quite interesting as well. The small clavicle, flexible back, and digitigrade posture are all features that are shared with other canage that increase that stride lengths. But due to the size and the proportions of Epicyon Haydenai, it actually suggests it was much more less cursorial than modern wolves, but it was better adapted for running than other species of Borophagine, which is very interesting as well. So it's kind of like a middle ground as well. And they likely used pounce predation, so they would kind of hang out and pounce on animals as well, and maybe even pursue them. So they'd hunt more like a big cat, like a lion, rather than a dog that just, wears its prey out. They just run them down. These guys would be more pursuit predators, hunting them more like, like a leopard or a lion would. And while we don't know where these guys lived in a pack or not, you can't really tell from looking at the brains. They have been looking at the brain, showed that these guys did have a large prefrontal cortex, potentially, that they could have, these larger developed brains, but they do have an unexpanded kind of pronoun generis, which suggests they didn't organize packs. But they could have been gregarious. They may not have lived in the packs the same way a wolf is. You can't really tell it. You can't really tell what sort of organization they were from the bones, but there is evidence to suggest they were a pack hunter, and they couldn't bring they couldn't bring down the prey they needed if they were solitary. But also they called interpretation to question, because lions and leopards and tigers have pretty much the same shaped brain, and and lions are social. So there's no way of proving that they can't live in packs like that, but they may have not lived in, the social dynamics. We really don't know. But what's really interesting as well, these guys are quite well known. They've ranged from Florida to California, up into Nebraska, Montana, Texas, and in things like Alberta, Canada as well. So quite a wide range. And they shared their territory with a bear called Hirnicaran, macrodont felids such as Amphimacarotus colorarensis and Borophagus. Those were predators it lived with, but also lived with prey such as the camel Elapcarus, the one with the really long neck, an early pronghorn Crumscriptus, horses such as Neohyperion and Nanippus, the peccary Prosinomus, and rhinoceroses such as Telecaris, which all would have been pretty good meals. And they also have been found a little bit younger at those areas. We still have some of those species, but we also have the procerrated Sonotheris, also at the beginning we have proboscideans like Gomphotherium, and then the Marvid Barbophilis, along with Enravis, Borophea, the Phagines, and stuff like that. So a very interesting assortment of animals. But the Borophagines, we don't know exactly why they went extinct. Speaking of that, we're going to have a look at the cute little baby, because why not? We do love looking at a cute little baby. We do not what to kind of soften it. We don't know why they went extinct. We think they would have gone extinct potentially from the result of the increased body size. It's around the middle Miocene when they went extinct. The global temperatures dropped, which potentially provided less sustainable habitat for these Borophagines. And later, as again, they had a limited adaptations to running. And it was also noted that these guys coincided with the Great Plains. The extinction of these guys coincided with the Great Plains shifting to be more steppe environment rather than a more woodish environment. Other contributing factors may have included the inability to capture ungulates in open environments, the inability to form packs, competition with more cursorial or predators like more normal, like typical wolves, and competition with other large carnivores such as hurricane and other felids and stuff like that, big felids. So yeah, that's by Eliza Planet Zoo, another great doggy. How can you not love a good doggy? I do love a good doggy. Nice to see some extinct animals getting some love. But this is not all the extinct animals we have today. Next up, we have got Leptomeryx isvardi, I believe you say that. It's another really cool mod. These last mods are done by GreatCakes, because you cannot not love a GreatCakes. So Leptomeryx Evansi. So these guys, Leptomeryx, these guys are an extinct genus of Artiodactyls, so, even-toed ungulate. They would have lived in North America during the Middle Eocene through the early Miocene. They are actually considered one of the earliest ruminants and belong to the extinct family Leptomerycidae, which is related actually to today's chevrons. So chevrotins are the closest living relative of these guys. Most fossils were found in the Badlands of the Midwestern US as well, but there have been some found in southern Canada and Mexico. And the genus itself was described by Joseph Liddy, and it does include quite a few species. So in terms of research history, as I mentioned, they were kind of first discovered in the 1840s. The bones was found, and they're actually noted to be quite similar to chevrotins and like the Javan mouse deer as well. And their name Leptomeryx means slender, small ruminant, pretty much. And Evansi honors Everts, who was one of the discoverers. So this is one of those animals, as I mentioned, there was lots of different species. As of 2023, kind of the latest research into them, the following species we have is Evansi. This is the one that we find here. The most common species and also the type species, but there are some other species that we, as I mentioned, got into as well. Evansi is actually one of the later ones, which is very interesting. So in terms of description, it's a very small cat-sized Artiodactyl, probably weighed at about 2.5 kilos or 505 pounds. It probably resembled modern chevrotins in quite a lot of ways. Those long slender legs, with the hind limbs being much longer than the forelimbs. The neck was also relatively short, and the trunk was elongated, especially around the lumbar area. The tail was also quite short, and thanks to numerous excavations, the animal is actually quite well known. Though it is not known for many skulls, they had a skull that was about 10 centimeters long and about 3 centimeters wide, elongated flat skull that actually resembled those of more like camels than those of chevrotins, which is interesting as well. Large eyes as well, so probably good for seeing stuff. That's quite interesting as well. They have interesting dentition as well. They had brachiodont teeth, molars, and they have cylindrodont grinding ones. So these guys likely would have been using their teeth for grinding quite a bit. In terms of postcranium, the radius almost met the length of the humerus, which is very interesting as well. Very long, slender legs. So in terms of their population dynamics, they were quite common in the Badlands of the White River Formation, and there's actually fossils of more than 440 individuals being found there. So they have been found in kind of mass death assemblages, and a lot of the carcasses that were transported there actually suggested that they may have been deposited there and transported at the same time. And they, based on this, actually concluded that there's actually a fixed breeding season for these guys, and females usually produce about one young a year. And as we do that, we'll talk about the young, because this one looks quite young, which is very, very cute, The estimated gestation period about 120 to 160 days, and the offspring were fully grown at 6 to 8 months, and their life expectancy being about 8 years. And one block actually contains multiple skeletons, and this has been interpreted as them being social, so that's another cool thing as well. In terms of their habitat, though, these guys would have likely inhabited grasslands and savanna. These open habitats were becoming more common during the Oligocene as the world in the area dried out. And then there would have been one of the most common mammals in these areas. And with their long limbs and stuff, they would have been quite well adapted to running around. Even though there was a lot of predators like Daponesis and Hyenodon that would have preyed upon them. But yeah, they would have potentially might have made their way into forests, but their true strength was in the open plains. So the shift from living in forested to open landscapes in this tradition from the Eocene to the Oligocene reflected their diets. The dentition suggests that these guys were browsers and were specialized on soft plant matter, but analysis of carbon isotopes actually showed that they preferred C3 plants which is interesting as well. And as they go younger in the deposits, they actually switch to C4 plants, which includes grasses. And oxygen isotopes also suggest that these guys may have actually been nocturnal, so would have avoided coming out during the day, likely to avoid predators. So as I mentioned, in terms of their distribution, they were widely distributed across North America. Most fossils actually come from the Badlands of South Dakota, Nebraska, and Wyoming, and particularly around the Chevron and Brule formations in the White River Group. Both formations contain quite a diverse fossil fauna, which include lots of different animals, plants, invertebrates, birds, mammals, stuff like that. And a lot of the more interesting mammals that you kind of see in there are things like perissodactyls or odd-toed ungulates, insectivorans, carnivorans, marsupials, as well as the extinct Leptomeryx and Panodontia. And the White River Group was actually quite exposed to where these guys were found. So a very rich habitat these guys were living in. And, of course, another great cakes mod. You know, you can't get much greater than a cakes mod. So, yeah, a really cool one there. Second to last mod by Great Cakes here, we have got a species of ground sloth. You know, I always like seeing a ground sloth. This is one that you don't really hear about much, but it's a very important one in the history of ground sloths. So this one here is actually called Tharnabastes. So these guys are an extinct genus of ground sloth that belong to the family Mylodidae, so related to Mylodon and those kind of guys. These are a species actually endemic to North America, or a genus endemic to North America. There are two species. This one is Wetsy. This is the kind of other species. Yeah, this is Wetsy. So these guys, both a couple other the Plio Metalistes actually were the first giant ground sloth to actually reach North America. And these guys would have been living in the Miocene to Pliocene from about 10 million to about 4.9 million years ago. And lived for approximately about 5 million years. So these guys were likely managed to get to North America before the Panamanian land bridge formed, and they would have potentially been island hopping through the Central American Seaway of South America, and where sloths in general first evolved. So that's quite cool. There are two specimens of these guys that weigh, been estimated to weigh between 984 kilograms to 1,066 kilograms. So likely in the weight range of about a ton. You know, there's a ton of them. So the history and taxonomy of Tharnabastes kind of fossils, they came to be in 1887, where typically the Pleistocene deposits of Levy County, Florida, where John Bell Hatcher, who was a famous collector, collected a astragalus of a large Mylodont and was referred to Mylodon until 1919, and then it was referred to Tharnabastes sedus, who's the type species, and it was a close relative of Ganthopus. And then the fossils gave a more comprehensive view of the taxon, and then they found more fossils in a bone bed and stuff like that. This species, some of the younger and larger fossils, so this is the larger species. I wonder if you can actually stand up for me, because they do a little stand up, which is really, really cool animation. These guys, some of the younger fossils belong to this species. It was also based on an astragalus found in the Hemophilian Formation in the Witelote River in Florida. So the fossils of these first species have only been found at two sites, both in Florida, but the second one has been found from lower early Hemophilian sites, with two sites from Florida and material actually from a juvenile in the Texas Panhandle. These guys were likely... Oh, there you go. There's one standing up. So that's quite cool. Quite a cool animation there. See if we can get them to do that again. But yeah, this is one of the custom animations they were doing for them. Yeah, really, really cool mod. I really love how Great Cakes did the fur on this guy. Really, really big fan. Let's see if we can actually get to see them do it again. Are you going to do it again for me? Oh. No, you're pooping. You can do it for me. Do it for me. Oh no, they're pooping. There we go. Doing it at the same time too. I love that. I think that's cool. I like the custom animation that Great Cakes mod does with a lot of these mods. Very, very cool. Gives them all a little bit of flair. But yeah, really, really cool. So last and certainly not least, We've got one mod that I've been waiting for a good while. We've got here, this is the leopard seal. So let's see if we can spot the female. There she is. So this is a leopard seal. And I love leopard seals. I managed to see one when we went to Taronga Zoo. And I believe Marineland had one. So that's really, really cool. I think that's really, really cool. Very, very cool species. So we've got the leopard seal. So the leopard seal, or it's called Hydrolebrox, also referred to as just the sea leopard. They're the second largest species of seal in Antarctica, the second only to the southern elephant seal. They are a top order predator. They're kind of the apex predators, or one of the apex predators of Antarctica, the Southern Ocean, and feed on a wide variety of prey. But we're going to skip that a little bit. They belong in the group, the genus Hydroidae, and their closest relatives are things like the Ross seal, the crab-eared seal, and the Weddell seal. So Henri Ducart de Barroville, who was a French zoologist, described the leopard seal in 1820 from a stuffed specimen, and the skin was produced. The work of taxidermy was sourced from the southern seas. The specimen itself was about 8 feet long, and had a small amount of whiskers and stuff. So a very, very interesting animal, these guys. And the genus itself was actually erected by Johannes von Neschborg Gestal in 1848. But this is the most common, the Hydrolebronoctis is kind of the one that we have there. So the leopard seal has a distinctly long muzzle, as you can see there. I love seeing her swimming around. She's such a pretty girl. Pretty seal. It's got of course, my seal of approval. So you can see you've got quite a long muscular, nozzle, muzzle there and body shape. When compared to other seals, quite a long girl. So the overall size for an adult leopard seal is about 2.4 to 3.5 meters, or about 7.9 to 11.5 feet long, and they can weigh between 200 and 600 kilograms, or 440 to 1,320 pounds. Make them the same length as a modern walrus, but about half the weight of a modern walrus. Very interesting as well. They are also covered with a thick layer of blubber, like most other seals, to protect them from the cold temperatures of the Antarctic. And this blubber also helps streamline their body, so this makes them, you can see that really helps them to, stay nice and long and, hydrodynamic, and hunt down prey quite swiftly. And a seal's body condition can actually be assessed by the blubber thickness, along with general girth, weight, and length measurements. There are another species with sexual dimorphism, with the female actually being up to 50% larger than the male, so about twice the size. And in the wild, they've been known to live up to 26 years. It is perhaps best known from its massive jaws, which allows it to be one of the largest predators in its environment. The seal's canine teeth are up to 1 inch long, or 2.5 centimeters, and the incisor teeth are sharp like those of other carnivores, but their molars are actually very interesting. They have molars that actually lock together in a way that allows them to sieve krill, and this is one of the other features they share with the crab-eating seal, which is a close relative, which is very interesting. And also with true seals, they don't have any external ears, they're all internal, and they have short whiskers and clear ears, and they use their whiskers to attract prey as well. And their front flippers are extremely large in compared to other species of cronids or true seals. Their large front flippers actually allow them to steer themselves through the water and makes them incredibly agile when hunting. And they use their front flippers similar to sea lions. And you can see their pelt, like many other species of seal, is counter-shaded. So contrasted a blend of like silvery dark grey with a distinctive leopard like pattern on the dorsum. With light to light grey colour eventually. So that's where they get kind of their name, the leopard seal, the kind of patterning there, even though it's not that similar to leopards. But I think they're quite cool. So leopard seals are pagophilic, which means they love ice, and they primarily live in the Antarctic pack ice between 50 degrees south and 80 degrees south. Higher densities of leopard seal are in the West Antarctic than in other regions. So most leopard seals remain within the pack ice throughout the year, but remain solitary during most of their lives, with the exception of a mother and a newborn pup. These matrilineal groups can move further north in the austral winter and subantarctic islands of the coastlines of the southern continents to provide care for their pups. While solitary animals may appear in areas of low latitudes, females rarely breed there, and some researchers believe this is due to safety concerns for the pups, which is very interesting as well. We'll have a look at the male swimming around. Have a look at you. Give the male some love, even though he's a little bit smaller. So the estimated population of the species ranges from 220,000 to 440,000, putting leopard seals as quote-unquote least concern. Although there is an abundance of leopard seals in the Antarctic, it's difficult to survey them, as they spend long periods of time vocalizing under the water surface during the austral periods of the summer, where audiovisual surveys are carried out. This habit of submarine vocalization makes them naturally suited to aquatic studies, as in conducted with cetaceans, allowing research to gather more than what is known about them. And while they are considered vagrants, I'm going to add a little bit extra as well. They've been recorded off the coast of Geraldton, Western Australia, multiple locales in New Zealand, South America, and South Africa, and fossil evidence actually suggests that they were present in South Africa during the late Pleistocene. And one thing I'd like to add about New Zealand, because I've recently been doing a blog for work and talking about a lot of extinct animals of New Zealand, it seems that leopard seals actually were quite common along our coasts historically. So they would have been living around, the Chatham Islands and New Zealand's coasts as kind of a predator historically, based on middens and stuff like that. So I think that's very interesting. Thinking that there could be an animal quite common across New Zealand. Very, very cool. And we do have Miss Ofar. She hasn't been seen since 2022, but she is quite a pretty girl. She used to live in Auckland, not far from where I used to live and where I grew up. So very, very cool. So, some really cool stuff as well in terms of behavior. Using transmitters and stuff like that, they're able to kind of find how they dive. They're primarily quite shallow divers, but are capable of diving more than 80 meters deep into the water, about 260 feet in search of food. And they're able to complete these dives by collapsing their lungs and reinflating them at the surface. And this is possible by increasing the amount of surfactants which coats the air via the lungs of reinflation. They also have a reinforced trachea to prevent collapse at these pressures. So these seals are actually quite famous. Oh, there's a little baby there. We don't want to have a look at him yet, but he is very, very cute. These seals have a wide variety of food that they eat. They're very generalist. Young leopard seals usually eat mostly krill, squid, and fish, but adults are able to take on more difficult but substantial prey, including penguins such as emperor kings, rockhoppers, adelies, gentoos, and ginstraps. And they're also thought to prey on other seals as well, such as the weddell, crab-eater, wrosse, young elephant seals, and fur seal pups. Which is quite cool as well. Research shows on an average an aerobic dive lasts about 7 minutes, which means that during the winter month, juvenile leopard seals do not eat krill, which is a major part of older sea seals' diets, since krill can be found deeper during this time. This might occasionally lead to cooperative hunts, where they hunt animals such as, hunt cooperatively to kill animals such as Antarctic fur seals, which is very interesting as well. Which could be a mother helping an older pup, or a female-male couple interactions, which is quite interesting as well. Across the subantarctic islands of South Georgia and other subantarctic islands, the Antarctic fur seal is a main prey. Arctic krill, southern elephant seals, and diving petrels and cape petrels are also prey. Vagrant leopard seals in New Zealand, like Ofar, have been recorded eating elephant fish, ghost sharks, and spiny dogfish. And actually, I believe there was one leopard seal found with platypus in their food, which was quite in their gut, was quite interesting as well, off Australia. When they're hunting penguins, they tend to patrol the water near the edge of the ice, almost completely submerged, and they kill the bird by grabbing its feet and then shaking it quite vigorously as well. And it's been reported that leopard seal skins its prey before feeding, but this is incorrect. How they eat krill is by suction, and they strain it through their teeth. So that's kind of a really interesting way, and it allows them to survive in an ecosystem such as Antarctica. So they are quite generalist in that regard. One of the cool things about them as well is their acoustic behavior. So they are very vocal underwater during the summer. They produce quite loud calls, up and down the water column, and they do like some cricket or trills, or some bird calls, or long haunting moans. So they do have a lot of different moans. and they actually have age-related differences to their patterns, like birds. So the younger seals have many different types of variable calls, but the males have like a very few high stylized calls, so it kind of tells them apart, which is cool as well. And the vocalization is thought to be important for breeding, since males are much more vocal. And mating will take place in the water, then that leaves the female to care for the pup, and we'll have a look at the cute little pup up the top, as I do love looking at the cute little pup, as it's very, very cute. Oh, and of course that happens right when I'm recording. That's okay, I'll fix that later. So there's a cute little pup. So these pups give birth, the female gives birth to this little pup after about 274 days of gestation, with most leopard seals breeding taking place on a pack of ice. Since leopard seals live in areas quite difficult for humans to survive in, not much is known about their breeding habits. However, it is known that they are polygamous, which means males mate with multiple females. And females will typically reach maturity between ages 3 to 7, and they can birth to a single pup during the summer on the ice. Mating occurs typically, males reach about 6 to 7 years to reach maturity as well. Mating occurs from December to January, shortly after the pup is weaned and the female's in estrus. In preparation, the female actually dig a circular hole into the ice to make a home for a pup, and the newborn pup weighs about 30 kilograms when born, and usually is with the mother for a month before being weaned off. The male leopard seal does not participate in childcare, and he actually kind of returns to social life after the breeding season. And leopard seal pup mortality within the first year is close to about 25%, so 1 1/4 sadly don't make it. So there were 5 research voyages made into Antarctica in 1985, 1987, and 1997 and 1999 to study these leopard seals. And they sighted seal pups from the beginning to November to the end of December, and they noted there was about 1 pup for every 3 adults, and also noticed that most adults were staying away from other adults during the season, so they tend to avoid each other at that time. So they have a relationship with humans. They are, quite an important part. You can't not think of Antarctica a lot of the time without thinking of leopard seals. So they are large predators and can kill people, potential risk. However, attacks on humans are rare. Most human perceptions of leopard seal are shaped by those historic encounters with aggressive behavior not really actually being documented, but some quite large ones being documented as well. There was one person, Gareth Woods, who was bitten twice in the legs by a leopard seal as it tried to drag him under the ice and into the sea. His companions managed to save him, though. There's a few other people that have been attacked. Ofar is one seal that has been shown to attack like platoons and stuff like that. So it can be a bit of an issue around because they can be dangerous to people. But there was someone that was actually killed by a seal, Kirsty Brown. So Kirsty Brown was a biologist that was killed by a leopard snail while conducting research snorkeling in Antarctica, and was the first recorded death attributed to a leopard seal. She was part of a team of 4 researchers as well, and she was snorkeling in the water, and Bert was snorkeling about 15 meters away from Brown, where they heard a scream and saw her disappear into the water. She was rescued by a team, but they were unable to resuscitate her. She was later revealed that she was held underwater for about 6 minutes at a depth of under about 70 meters, so that's how she drowned, which is very important as well. And she suffered about 45 separate bites and scratches, which were all concentrated near the head and neck. So that's very interesting as well. In reports read into the inquiry into Brown's death, it stated that the seal may have mistaken her for a fur seal or may have frightened her and attacked her in defense. And these interactions seem to be quite rare, but it's warned that there's maybe potentially more common due to the human presence of Antarctica, kind of learning that people are food. So, in captivity, there have been some captivity attempts with the seals, mostly rescues and stuff. Taronga Zoo had a couple of them. I know Marineland in New Zealand had a couple too. So they were kept at Taronga Zoo between 1999 and 2014. They were found as vagrants, washing up on Australian beaches emaciated, and had bites from crocodile sharks. They could not be released due to believe they could transmit diseases to wild populations, so they remain in the care of zoos, especially the leopard seals, so that's quite cool. And then we had Orfa, as we mentioned. Her name is Orfa na Oka Tupana. So she's a female leopard seal that kind of remained around the coastlines of the North Island, around the Rocky Gulf in Auckland from about 2012 to at least about 2022, and it was recognised by scars, and she is actually claimed to be the longest tracked leopard seal in the world. But in terms of leopard seal conservation, The leopard seal is listed as least concern, and they're quite wide range and abundant, though maybe less common in their ranges as we kind of talked about, potentially living a lot more north historically. Though their population sizes are known, there is no indication of decline, with a 2012 study potentially being about 35,000, and it's likely is a substantial underestimate. So, yeah. Because they are limited to the subpolar regions, there may be risks of polar ice caps. That might be a big issue for these seals, diminishing with global warming. Additional threats include commercial harvesting of krill, which is an important food source for them, I think as well. Actually very pretty. Increased tourism, entanglement in marine debris, and actually canine distemper virus, which is very interesting as well. So that's, they can get that from dogs. Seals within New Zealand waters are protected by the Marine Mammals Protection Act, and the hunting of leopard seals is regulated, so no hunting currently occurs. So luckily they're pretty much out of the range of most people, so they're doing quite okay. But yeah, very, very cool animal. I do love leopard seal, and it's nice that we got a really good leopard seal as well. We know we've had a couple in the past, and I know Leaf wanted to remaster it, but Great Cake's taking a stab at it. Came out remarkably well. So yeah, I think that's a great place to end the video. So I'm going to thank everyone first. So thank you, GreatCakes, for your fish. Thank you, Eliza, for your big bone-crushing dog, Yappy Scion. And thank you, the GreatCakesMod. Thank you for the Leptomeryx and Thunderbird Hades, those extinct, those cool extinct animals. And your giant, leopard seal. We do love a good leopard seal. So yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you guys like and subscribe, always remember that little bell icon to get notified of anything. So if you guys enjoyed this video, hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.